Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're just going to give it another minute for anybody else to sign on, and then we will begin the presentation. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and begin. My name is Aaliyah Picanso, and I am the Product Marketing Specialist here at Vicon. Today's presentation will review the thermal body temperature solution, and it will be presented by Guy Arazi, the Director of Product Management here at Vicon. If at all during the webinar you have any questions, just please type them into the question box in your go-to webinar panel. It's towards the bottom right of your control panel, and then we'll go over as many questions as we can when we're done with the presentation. So I will pass this off to Guy.
Hello, everyone. Glad to see everybody here. It's actually our second time around showing this product, which obviously is very interesting these days. We hope everybody's doing well and everybody's temperature is normal, but the idea of this camera and the whole concept of having to look at people going in and out of certain areas and monitoring their temperature would probably sound like science fiction to everybody a few months ago. And these crazy times that COVID-19 brought on all of us have brought up some interesting applications. And this camera, even though it's a thermal camera, which we've dealt before. We've done thermal camera installations for certain things which were more security related, such as perimeter detection and some industrial type solutions. The idea of using these cameras to measure human body temperature and to try and isolate people was not something that we were dealing with, and then it became a reality. The cameras themselves, the solutions have been around and have been used and have been talked about. And what we want to do today is take you through what we're doing with this camera, what do we offer and bring to the table, how it fits into the solutions required when you need to screen body temperature at certain areas, and what does Vicon offer around this solution. So the main idea and really the thing that we're leading with here is to try and provide some kind of protection and build some confidence with those that are going through our domains, our areas of responsibility. And it can be our customers coming into a store, it can be our students at the school, it can be inmates at the prison, and it can be any place where crowds will move from one area to the other. And the one thing that we have going for us right now with COVID-19 is the ability to use body temperature as an indicator of somebody possibly being sick. We're not diagnosing anybody with having or not having COVID-19 or just the flu or something else. What we're doing is we're finding a way to isolate a person and to try and identify whether they are a risk to the rest. And the idea behind all this is really to help and identify those people that are at risk before they make contact with other people. So if we look at that from even a simple place of work type of environment, and we have people coming in the morning and they're walking into the building, and as long as they're coming in from their car, passing through the doors, and they didn't really have time to get into the facility, if we see that they have an elevated temperature, we can stop them and we can ask them to go home, and we can take the temperature again with a secondary measurement using a handheld thermometer or some other medical device, just to be sure. But even if we send them home to be isolated for 14 days, it is much less than if we allow them in, let them mingle with the rest of their peers or teach students at the school or do anything like that, and potentially infect others. Now, they may not even have COVID, but everybody that came in contact will need to be isolated. And the impact at that point is so big that the catastrophe is what we're trying to prevent. So everything we'll talk about here in terms of what this camera does and what's the best practice in using this camera comes to try and do this before identification, to provide the tools in people making decisions hands to stop and mitigate the situation before it happens. At Vicon, we've been doing video security, IP video cameras, and everything that this device is forever. We've been around for over 50 years, and we've always worked at the higher end of the quality and the accuracy, and what we put behind the product is still, with this camera, the same thing. For one, we are looking to provide a very highly accurate device. And what we're offering with this device is an accuracy within half a Fahrenheit, plus minus, from the temperature. If we set the system right and we put it the way it should be, we will provide a read on the temperature, which is extremely accurate. Some systems, and I'll mention that again and explain what we do here, some systems would offer measuring at -2, plus minus 2 and 3 degrees, where in body temperature, that's quite a bit. And when you're trying to identify that individual that has a temperature and may pose risk, you want to be in the right spot here. And another thing that's worth mentioning is the FDA guideline that was published as part of this whole pandemic and what everybody's doing behind this pandemic. Clearly, the FDA didn't deal with thermal cameras as cameras before. And the ability to use these cameras to take human body temperature and report it and basically try and stop people, it's not diagnosing them with COVID, as we said, but it may help us to say, hey, this guy has a fever, we might want to look at that. That ability also brought the FDA to publish a guideline that says, okay, with these thermographic devices, what do you need to do for one, best practices of deployment, and what they consider to be a realistic range. One of the things that is published there is needing to be at a certain plus minus around half a degree and not plus minus 2 degrees, which may cause you to miss some. I'm going to mention the FDA guideline as we keep going as well, because one thing that we're doing when we talk to customers and when we present the product is we mention it in light of that FDA guideline. Now, there is no official FDA approval process because the FDA honestly just couldn't get to it. And at this time, they certainly have a lot of things on their plate. What they did is they allowed to submit certain paperwork. Pre-market notification is the name, for us to say, here's the device, here's what it does, here's how it meets your criteria. And if and when the FDA will get to actually test and provide stamps of approval, which may or may not happen depending on how this whole pandemic is going to go, then we've already went in line, we have a pre-approval to start promoting it as a temperature reading device. The second thing, which is also extremely important, is the speed it takes to read the temperature of the individual. If we're taking it as an example, a handheld thermometer, in many places we'll put somebody at the door and we'll have a handheld thermometer and we'll point it to the forehead, or sometimes there's some that do it with the palm of your hand, and we'll give you a read. If you look at the cycle, to take the temperature, to let the thermometer reset, to have the person move and the next one come over and takes his temperature, you're looking at about 20, 25 seconds per person. If you have a few employees just trickling into the building, that's fine. If you have a large number of people that need to go through and get screened, that's going to become a long time. This system offers within 30 milliseconds of the time we're capturing the face and we are locking on the face, 30 milliseconds to get a read. Now, even if we're grossly exaggerating, which we're not, and it takes 1 second in comparison to 20, 25 seconds it takes with a handheld thermometer, you're still saving a lot of time and you can screen a much larger crowd as it goes through. The product itself does allow capturing temperature and reading up to 16 targets, faces, simultaneously, and it will deliver those results together right on the video. You'll see how it looks when I get to the demonstration. The FDA guideline, again, highly recommends having people come in a single file and have them measured one by one. The main reason for that is one, control of the crowd, so people don't crowd one on top of each other, like 16 people in the same group. Second one is the ability, when you do one by one, to very clearly identify, oops, there's a red situation, the temperature is elevated, we need to pull that person aside and continue screening without having to figure out who in the group it was, go look at the picture right away, and things like that. So, sorry, my phone is ringing. I'll make it shut up. The third bullet point here is the ability, once we have a read, to actually provide an alarm, to say to the people that are managing the system, hey, there is a situation here. We have a person that we detected elevated temperature or whatever else we detect, and I'll show the options to provide a snapshot of that person, to record the video so we can play back the event and things like that. We offer the deployment in two ways. One is as a standalone system. We are very aware that many places are going to look to deploy this solution as a standalone solution. They don't have a video management system. They're not recording other cameras. There is a certain situation that needs to be monitored and it needs to be deployed. We have a standalone software that can be offered. I'll show you how it looks. And it gives you the basic indications of the reads, the temperatures, and is it red or green, good or bad, and allows you to look at those snapshots. It doesn't record video, but in many places, this is going to be a great solution. Another important piece of this puzzle is what's called a black body. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard the term black body and have seen that a concept float around. This black body device, which is part of the system that we offer, is one, I'm going back to that FDA guideline, is mandated by FDA for the accuracy level. It is the magic that allows us to get to that accuracy level of half a degree. This black body, even though it looks very simple and not really sophisticated, is actually extremely sophisticated. What it does is it provides us with a very accurate temperature reference point that we can count on. The problem with any object that you'll put somewhere is that it absorbs energy and it emits energy, and if there's direct sunlight or other elements, it very quickly changes its temperature, and it could be significant changes depending on the material that we're using. This black body device, what's genius about it is how it handles that energy. It has the ability to both absorb and emit energy to a point where it really doesn't affect its temperature too much. Now, if you take that black body and drop it into liquid nitrogen, which is extremely cold, obviously it's going to change its temperature. That's not the point. The point that in normal ambient temperature, you can count on this device to keep its temperature where it should be. And why is that so important? Because it gives us on the camera side and the software side, and I'll show you how it comes together, it gives us a reference point, which we know is always at an exact temperature. And if we know that within the big picture, which we get all these temperatures to show there, we have one object that's always at the exact same temperature, we can let the algorithms in the camera use that fluctuation to be more accurate on the read it gets from a person. So that's our rock there. That's what every calculation is based on when we do the measurement. Without a black body, we estimate that will be fluctuating again, plus minus 2 or 3 degrees, and that's a lot when it comes to body heat. I'm going to keep going, and I'll show you that black body in the actual footage, and I'll mention again how it's used for the calibration, not the calibration, for the read of in the system. So let's talk about the alerts. Right here on the right-hand side, what we're showing is the standalone, the very simple software that we offer with the camera. And it will give us, every time a person passes, we'll read and we'll put him on the list with his temperature. It's going to tell us if the abnormal temperature detection happened. And we do give two thresholds, high temperature as well as low temperature. Low temperature not being there to allow you to find somebody whose body is freezing, but it's there to be able to detect that maybe the read wasn't done that great. Maybe he had a baseball cap and it was pulled down and he didn't, we didn't really get a good read, and we're getting a very low body temperature degree. That will be another sign that you want to take his temperature again with a secondary device, basically a handheld thermometer. The second thing, which is very popular, is the mask detection. More and more areas and places mandate wearing a mask when you walk in the building, sometimes when you get to your desk and so on. But we can give an alert here when somebody's going into the building and his temperature seems to be fine, but he's not wearing his mask. And you can see a stamp here. You'll see that in the video I'll show as well. If we connect to Valeris, to our VMS, we can also, apart from getting the alarms, that temperature events, the mask events, and all that, we can also record the live video, which is different than just taking snapshots. In addition to getting these events, obviously, we need to do something with them. So we'll talk about the deployment there in one of the next slides, but there is a best practice that talks about somebody actually monitoring things as they happen versus a system that just manages itself. It is possible. The question is it going to allow you to do that before, to catch people when you need to catch them, and that's before they got to the other people. So I said before that the standalone software will give you snapshots, only snapshots, while Valeris, because it's a video management system, and actually we can integrate into other VMSs if needed, allows you to record the video, whether it's the live video or the thermal image, got those both, and to be able to play them back, do searches on them, alert, send an email to someone, pop up the camera on the screen at the control center, and so on and so on. All the capabilities that we get with events when you have them in video management systems. So let's talk a little bit about the best practices and installation, and to give you a feel of how this will work in the real world. And I'll also touch on the different environments that this is suitable for. If you look at this drawing, you can see that we're basically creating a capture box here. The camera is mounted. In this drawing, I'm showing it with a ceiling mount, but it could be wall mounted or it could be on a tripod. The key is that we need to put in the field of view of the camera, we need to have the person, the individual that we're catching, or the group if we decide to go that way. Again, the best practice of everybody says one by one, so this is what I'm showing here. In the field of view of the camera, give or take, we're looking at 10 feet, and then the back of it is around 16. We're creating this box. And the idea is that we get a good image and a good face shot from the camera so we can lock on the face, read from the forehead. That's how the system works. Within the same field of view, we want our black body to be, and it needs to be seen by the camera, because now we can tell the camera, and that's part of how we calibrate the camera. We tell the camera, hey camera, here's the black body. It is at a constant temperature of 104 degrees, and the camera then knows when it reads off the face to use this information in the big thermal picture to do the math right and to give us an accurate read. The numbers here, as far as distance, can be a little longer and a little shorter and a little longer, but give or take, this is what we're looking at. It is very similar for those of you who dealt with facial recognition, and similar where you need a good shot of that head and face. Talking about control and keeping that before where it needs to be, the one very important recommendation that we make is to add another piece to this puzzle. If possible and where possible, if we can add some kind of mechanical means, like a turnstile in this case, that will be tied into the system, and it can be unlocked unless somebody actually gets a bad temperature read, and then we stop him at the turnstile. Or it can be locked and to unlock every time we get a good read. But this way we can manage the line of people going in, and at the time we have a detection, we can actually stop that person and prevent him from walking and mingling with the other people in the building, in the facility, and actually, say, hey, we're sorry, we have, a suspicious temperature read. Please come aside and we'll take your temperature again using a thermometer, and then decisions can be made. This goes to two things. One is the actual way to do that, which can be either tying it directly into the camera's dry contacts. It has two relays on it, so we can actually have the camera manage this input. We can have a buzzer, a strobe, anything that we want from the camera, or we can use the software or the VMS to do some of that control. And in some places where doors are there anyway and card access is being used anyway, we can have this as a secondary means. When a person swipes his card, he also has to pass the temperature measurement for the door to unlock. So we can use those together to get a higher higher means of securing the door. That's typically where you have doors in cards reader. Where you don't, even though adding turnstiles and means like that is adding a little to the cost of the entire solution, it will give you that control to stop people and not having to pay the money of sending them home. So in some cases, this is very relevant. In our kit, and this is really a system, we're not selling a camera. We're selling a system meant to provide you with this thermal management. It consists of the camera, which has two eyes on it. One is a regular camera, full HD, and one is the thermal imager. And you'll see how that looks when I show you the live feed. The black body that I mentioned is included, comes in every one of these kits. Couple of mounts that we provide with the solution, and like anything we offer from Vicon, 3-year warranty, tech support out of New York, 24/7. I will show the software and let you be the judge of that. Before I show you that, I want to talk just a little more about the environments. We had a few questions in the former webinars, and when we talk to other people and demonstrate the product, we had a few questions about the environment. Where should we be installing this system? So I would say, again, I'm going to the best practices, and I'll explain that a little bit. Yes, there is a black body here, and the black body allows us to have a very tightly controlled solution, even if there's temperature fluctuations in the ambient temperature around the system. It is not as solid if we have an extreme cold source or hot source or energy source that comes in between here and affects the camera or the black body itself. Meaning, if we try and put the system outdoors on the curb, we had a customer that asked us, can I screen my employees before they hit the building? I'd like to do it on the walkway as they come from the parking lot towards the building. Where you have direct sunlight and you have wind gusts that may be freezing in the winter and extremely hot in the summer, depending on where you are, this is not something we recommend. So outdoors, typically, we would say, get yourself a tent. If you want to do your triage outside, get a tent, allow people to come in from one side, keep this environment relatively controlled, and allow them to go out on the other side. If you're in a lobby or sorts, make sure not to point your camera right at the big window looking east where the sun is going to hit it right in the face of the camera half the day and may throw it off. How much? We can't really tell. It's just not recommended. It's much better that you turn it around and have the window on the side of it. Don't place the solution right next to the door where every person opening the door is going to bring in a freezing cold wind, which is going to swirl somewhere around here and will basically cool the air between camera and person, not really between camera and black body, but that also may throw the system off. So how much is it really going to impact your measurements? It's hard to say. The best practices are there just to allow you to do the right thing before you have to learn whether it threw you off. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to switch to a video clip and show you a little bit of how this works in reality. Because it's very hard to demonstrate live, what we've done is we asked a few of our employees to help us, and we created this clip showing some of the capabilities and how that really works real time. So the first thing that you can see here, I'm going to pause it for a second, is the standalone software. This is not a VMS. This is the software that will provide you if you want to use the standalone. You can see here the two sides, the real video side as well as the thermal side. Those get calibrated in a way that they match. And you can see that we're getting a read, we're catching the face, we're giving the temperature. You can see it up here. All good reads are listed here on the right in green. If a person doesn't have a mask on, you see the mask stamp, and this snapshot is being saved. It does not get recorded in this case because the software only saves the snapshot. So the only thing you have is the snapshots, and if there is an alert, you can tell the software to send you the alert to your app or to your email or to some other means. The second test we've done here is we asked someone to walk around and put the coffee cup right on his forehead. And the purpose of this exercise is really to show that we're still capturing the forehead, but because the forehead is now very hot, you're getting a very, very high and unusual temperature read. You can see that when we have a high temperature read, it goes in its own area down here, not with the regular reads only, but also here. And this is the alert area where you can see the high temperature and all that. And again, get your information out of it, get the snapshot, get the alert as with the way you set it up, and be able to send it. Let's do it again with a different person. I would say 160 degrees is quite a temperature. We probably want to talk to that person. Before I let it play a little more, just to draw your attention, you can see back here, it's very easy to see here on the thermal image, you can see the black body, and it's set for 104. Here it is in the other picture. So this is how the camera, which we're looking out of, if you think of that, knows where the black body is and what the temperature is and can use it within the big thermal picture to know and calibrate and get the right read of the forehead. Same concept showed in the Valeris VMS. What we're doing here in the Valeris VMS, we're getting the video from the camera. I'll pause him as well. And we're getting it like any other camera. This one is the live. We can get the thermal. We can get them both depending on how you want to set it up. And everything that you see is overlaid. So when somebody walks over, you see the green or the red box, the temperature is overlaid. That information is saved in the database for searches. And now you have yourself recorded video, which you can use and extract the clip and do your searches and do everything you want with that. Same exercise with the hot forehead popping up an alarm, in this case in the VMS, and it can be sent as well to other places, and so on and so on. I'm going to jump back at the PowerPoint and summarize, and then we can look at some of the questions that you sent over. So we talked about this device being around in the world for before. We brought it on board when the whole COVID situation started. It is not new in its nature. It's new for us to sell into such applications, and a change from the security side of the business where we use thermal quite a bit. This product is a system that's meant to provide a solution based off the camera, the black body, and everything we talked about. And we follow the FDA guideline is what we're trying to do. It is submitted for a pre-market notification, as I explained before, and we are selling it for this purpose, and we are offering it to stand in those standards: half a degree accuracy, measuring of certain number of people at a certain time, 30 millisecond detection, and so on. At this time, I would ask you, if you still haven't typed any question into the question box, this is an opportunity to do that, and I will be happy to answer some questions. Let me just open that. So I'm only able to answer technical questions about the solution, and I cannot answer any kind of investor questions and things like that. I encourage you to get hold of our investment group in Vicon. Unfortunately, I cannot really answer your question here. There is a question here, and it's a really good question about the adjustment time. So I'm gonna roll back here to our overview slide here, the installation one, and a question about adjustment time. What happens if we have a person that came into the building after he walked outside from the parking lot, and it's Arizona and it's summer, and he had a chance to kind of get a little hotter, and his forehead may be hotter. Is there an adjustment time? Is there something that needs to happen before we really take his temperature? Same goes for winter. Somebody comes from the outside, it's freezing cold. Do you need to let him defrost a little bit before we take his temperature? The answer is yes. And the answer is there is potential of somebody really coming in with a very cold forehead and so on, or hot, actually getting a wrong read. The recommendation, again, I'm jumping to what FDA mentioned. There was a discussion of that. There was mention in some places even of acclimating for 15 minutes, which is quite a bit of time. We've seen from what we looked at and how we played with it a little bit, we've seen that within a minute, typically you get to a normal temperature, and that's the same for any type of measurement. But you probably want, in certain areas where potentially people have walked for a few minutes outside, to let them really come into this lobby area or somewhere, and let's say spend a couple of minutes before they try and walk in the door. It's not an exact science. It is a best practice that needs to be followed. So I have a question about the resolution of the thermal imager. The thermal imager is a 320 by 240 imager. For thermal, that's really all we need in there, but the real video is full HD, 1920 by 1080. I have a question about calibration. When we install the set, there is a very quick calibration process. Basically, once everything is set in place, we tell the camera where the black body is, what the temperature is on the black body. We turn the black body on and set it to the same temperature. We calibrate the views, the field of view, so the thermal and the regular one overlap, and then the bounding boxes look the same on both. And that's about it. I would say it's probably a 5-minute calibration once everything is set in place. The units come out of the box and out of the factory calibrated. At this point of time, this is all you need to do, and we don't have a routine right now where you need to do any other calibration. I'm not sure if there is, at a certain point, a need to recalibrate either of these. That's something I'm going to have to look at. So we'll reply on that when we answer the questions in writing. Everybody's going to get a copy of that. A question about the masks, which is, like we said, getting very popular. How accurate is the scan with different types of masks? We've seen an excellent level of results, both with the surgical masks and the N95s and some of the cloth ones, and people are using different ones. We're getting really good reads. I wouldn't say it's 100% accurate, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Who are our biggest customers for this product? So the main interest I can share with you would be places where we have really this situation of a lot of people coming in, potential to mix. Schools, huge interest from schools, and places of work where we have a lot of people moving in and out in a day, and the potential of them infecting big crowd also happens. We've talked to some malls and some movie theaters as well, where you can see the logic of that. But there is, I would say, pretty wide interest from everyone out there because of this uncertainty around COVID and everything that it works. I'm just going through the questions as well. So there's a question, is there a user interface that tells the user something? So if I'm walking into the building, will I get some kind of feedback when my temperature is read? There's nothing built in, but the camera has a couple of relays on it. So if you want to create some kind of feedback for the people, let's say like a little traffic light, green light, red light, you can definitely do that because we have two relays on the camera and we can have them turn lights on and off. I'm not sure everyone will actually want to provide the user with a feedback. Now, if we tie to a turnstile, like the situation we discussed here, definitely there'll be feedback because they're going to get stopped. And the other way is to use those dry contacts. I'm getting a question about using commercial use. I'm not sure what's the mean of commercial, whether it's large groups or anything like that, and places where women have their faces covered, not masks, like in the Middle East. Um, this system is based on the assumption that the face is not covered. So it is going to be more difficult, as well as the fact that it does need to see the forehead to get a temperature. I'm not sure. I can't really answer that right now as far as how well would it work in places where full face covers are being used. I just don't know at this time. We'll try and find out and answer on the Q&A. So the question about what is measured, the measurement is really the face itself. It's not the air. It is locking on the face and then going for the forehead to take the temperature of that object, which will be different than the air around it. Is there a space, a scene depth between the black body and the camera? Again, the distance here is recommended, and you can see it to put the black body, give or take, above the target in this case, and it has to be in the field of view. So there's a question about which browser to use with the camera. The camera itself, when you use the camera, is used with Chrome. And there's a question about Internet Explorer. There might be a question, a mix of a question here between Chrome and, sorry, the camera and Valeris. You're going to need to clarify the question to us. I don't want to give you the wrong answer right now. So I'm just looking around to see if I missed any question that I can still answer you guys. I think this is all the list I have here. So if there's no other questions, I'm going to give this webinar back to Aliyah, and I will thank you again for participating. Hopefully we answered your questions, and please contact us for further information.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Guy. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and we will be sending out a fulfilled question and answer along with a recording of this webinar. And for all of the investors, we will be reaching out to you individually and trying to answer your questions. So once again, thank you for taking the time to join, and we'll see you soon.